It's 11:11. Make a wish.
Welcome to Hacking Hypermobility Podcast.
I'm Luna.
And I'm Shelli.
And we're two bendy mamas
hacking hypermobility.
Welcome back to another edition of Hacking Hypermobility's Hope I'm Alive series. F is for it's Friday. And I forgot that I didn't have anything recorded for today's episode. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But instead of making a bunch of excuses, I am going to do a little housekeeping update. Number one, today's episode is going to be different because I've decided it's going to be what I recorded for my personal YouTube channel, and I just never got around to posting it. And why not? Let's post it here, and it's also going to be on my personal YouTube channel. Number two, I've also decided I need a break. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, I just had my nieces here this past week. And number two, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be out of town going to my son's college graduation. And family's going to be in town. It's going to be pretty busy. And then after that, my husband turns 50, which is a big deal because he's awesome and I want to celebrate him. And then just right after that, Luna and Tiffany are coming to my house and we're going to do a whole bunch of cool stuff. So there's a lot going on. So here's what's going to happen. Today, you're going to get this 35-ish minute video I made where I kind of just talk a lot about me. Why not? And then we will come back May, whatever that second Friday in May is. Is that true? Wait a minute. No, it's going to be the third Friday because May 9th would be the second one. And that's when my son graduates on the 10th and I can't. And oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. I'm blabbing. Anyway, so we'll be back on May 16th and we will continue with the real F, not the, this fake stuff I just pulled together. Additionally, because I will be having hip surgery, the same surgery on my left, we haven't scheduled that yet, but it's because of everything I just mentioned. It's looking like it's going to be as early in July as possible that we can schedule it. And what's good about that is now that I kind of know, A, I've had the surgery, but B, I can structure, I will live record on Fridays actual updates real time with my surgery, because as much as I recorded content before, during, and after the surgery on my right hip, what I didn't do was organize it very well. And so I just have a bunch of stuff. And we also are using Riverside now. So what I can do is record the content in Riverside itself and then kind of let it do its super tech AI magic. This is what we should use AI for. This and like telling me when to plant stuff outside. Although I have decided, I learned something today and my tree taught it to me. For the last few weeks, the maple tree's been getting ready to drop its whirlybirds, helicopters, whatever. I looked up the actual name of those things a while ago and I've already forgotten. Anyway, Alec and I were looking at them and we were trying to figure out when they were going to fall. He thought they'd already fallen. I'm like, no, they're still very, very green. Like, it's a very quick process. Like, if you've never had maple trees in your yard, we have 5 of them that drop so many whirlybirds. Anyway, just in the last 2 days, they've turned brown and like our yard is covered in whirlybirds. And I've decided that that's going to be my natural reminder or cue that it is okay to plant things such as like my morning glories or anything that's like got to go after the frost. I'll let you know how that goes. Let's see. Is there anything else I need to say? I don't think so. Hey, I'm Shelli, and this is my first YouTube video. I'm gonna just say the most important thing up front. If you're really not happy about what's going on in our country, I'm in the US, by the way, here's a little action item that's really easy to do, and it doesn't take any time at all. I'm going to show you how to do it.
I live in Maryland, and one of our representatives, he's not my representative, he's in the neighboring district, Jamie Raskin, has made it really easy for you to find out what Doge has collected about you. If you go to his website, jamieraskin.com, there's a very easy form for you to just fill out. They made it so easy for you. Now, you might be thinking, what else can I do? It's doom scrolling and overwhelm is a real thing right now. I've been suffering from it. It's messed up my sleep cycle. It's messed up relationships with people. And not because they disagree with me. If they don't want to talk to me about what's going on, I really don't have anything to say. Because I'm personally affected. My children are personally affected. My husband's job might be affected, but it's not just about my family. I care about everything that's going on. And if other people around me aren't doing well, how does that help my community? It doesn't. So I just want to put this out here and let you know that you're not alone. And one of my goals is to streamline what I focus on and what I share. And the easiest way for me to do that is to speak to what I know from my lived experience. And my lived experience includes the following. I went to public school. I went to a public university for undergraduate school. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I'm the daughter of a Coast Guard veteran, and my mother was a lifelong civil servant for local government. I myself took a job. My first job was working fast food at Dairy Queen. In college, I drove buses. I had a Class B CDL, and I got that when I was 19 years old. People thought that was a little weird, but I had a great time there. It's where I met my husband. Anyway, after that, I ended up getting a job with the federal government, and I was a civil servant for almost 12 years until my health was so adversely affected by everything that was going on, and the federal government was unwilling to let me work part-time, even though I had a plan for it, and they really didn't want me to leave. At least that's what they said. No regrets, by the way. After that, I tried to be a stay-at-home mom, which wasn't necessarily difficult at that stage in life because my children were older and starting middle school. I got bored because that's what I do. So I took a contract job with the state of Maryland, another government job. After my contract was over, which was a 3-month contract, they wanted me to stay on full-time, but I didn't. And the reason why I didn't is because I saw a lot of inefficiencies and waste that wasn't related to the people who were doing the jobs. It was related to the overall policies and the way that government works in our country. And so I can't abide by that anymore. It is too frustrating. And I think that's where people like me who are frustrated with government see that it can work. It can. I've watched it work in action. But being hamstrung by old policies or inefficient policies or rules that don't make any sense is what makes it wasteful, in my lived experience opinion. And I can tell you a story later about. So I didn't take that contract. What did I do after that? I decided I was going to be a substitute teacher because why not? Flexible schedule, I could help shape the lives of children. And I actually preferred to work with middle schoolers. Yeah, you heard that right. Middle schoolers. 8th grade to be exact. They do not smell good. Or they smell too much like body spray. Anyway, again, I did a 1-year-long stint. I got brought on to be a long-term sub in 8th grade, and I filled the role of the co-teacher in a co-taught classroom. And they wanted me to stay after that year. Take the program for, what did they call it? Second, like career change teacher program or whatever. I already had the education requirements, most of them, and then I would just have to do some tests and like through a probationary period. But again, the reason why I did not want to stay and work for the public school system, even though I believe in it wholeheartedly, I am a product of the public school system, the current shape that it's in, and just the way all of the policies trickle down, just the bureaucracy, the actual bureaucracy of it, is unsustainable for the way I view the world. So I left. And then a few years later, I got bored again, because I don't know if you've picked up on this. I have a very busy brain and I need to do something. So when my youngest started middle school at a magnet school for visual arts, I happened to see that they had an opening for a media specialist assistant job, and just being like a library helper. And libraries are cool. So I said, I'll apply for this and see what happens. Was I grossly overqualified for that job? 100%. I don't think I had made that little money since I was in my early 20s. But I didn't care, because I was at my child's school. I was present in a media center for all of the children in a Title I school who, I was just there. But during that time, while I was working at the middle school, it was 2017 into 2018, I also got roped into, I don't want to say roped or tricked, because I made the choice, but this was before I knew everything that was going on with my brain. Autistic and have ADHD, by the way. I don't know if you picked that up yet. So I was convinced to join the board of directors. Well, I ran for the position unopposed, but I became the communications director for a local swim club. And that was fine. I didn't really want to do it, but it gave me free dues for however long I was on the board, and that seemed like a decent exchange for my services to do social media posts and manage the website for this pool. Except, and this is where my knowledge of how these things work is going to make sense in the grand scheme of what's going on with our country. At the very first meeting that I went to as a board member, there were red flags everywhere with regards to how the money was being used. And I didn't know who to talk to about it. I knew about half of the people on the board, but only in like a very acquaintancy type fashion. And I didn't know who would actually care about what I was wanted to discuss. So I kind of sat on it for a month, and I waited to observe the next meeting. And I did, and it was more of the same. In fact, it was even more alarming. The treasurer couldn't answer basic questions about what was going on with the money. And he didn't have bank statements, or he had some QuickBooks, reports, but if you are not familiar with QuickBooks, if it's not tied directly into your bank account, like that's pulling records to do the reconciliation, it's junk in, junk out. And so you can cook the books to make things look however you want them to look. The treasurer also said some weird things during this time frame that if you sat back and thought about, didn't really make sense. For example, he kept saying, "Hey everybody, stop spending money right now. We need to slow down our spending money." Now, I don't know about you, but in Maryland, in November, I'm not really outside in a swimming pool, right? Pool's closed. All of the people who have access to money, the swim director, dive director, the only people who really should be spending money are like maintenance and the treasurer to pay like the bills if there's a mortgage or whatever. And like I said, I had just joined this board and I didn't know much about how the operations of this pool worked. But what I did know was that I had just come off being PTA president at my kiddo's elementary school, where my treasurer presented me with bank statements and other information that I looked at to make sure shit was on the up and up. And then I signed it. Nothing like that I ever witnessed at the pool board. Okay? I left that meeting wanting nothing more to do with that board. I did not have a good feeling about what was happening. In fact, I wanted to quit. And I almost did. I skipped the next board meeting. I was so stressed out about how to interact with these people that I didn't know who on this board was shady besides the treasurer, which is very obvious to me. I was trying to figure it out. So I faked sick and skipped the next meeting. But I was trying to delicately figure out who I was going to approach with what was going on. But I didn't have to, because in the 3 weeks after that meeting that I skipped, the bank called the president at the time and alerted them to some alarming financial activity. And after that is when I really got roped in, because my government experience was in following the money and auditing financials. And I had never been on this board. I was a brand new member. So anytime there's improprieties when it comes to funding, usually it starts in-house, right? You take it to the ombudsman or the inspector general or the treasurer or some internal auditing thing to kind of get a lay of what's going on. A lot of our members of the pool who found out through the grapevine what was going on were making these ridiculous claims on social media, demanding ridiculous things. Do you see a parallel yet with what's going on? Anyway, the meeting that we had to discuss what was going on, and mind you, 2 members of the board weren't at this meeting because it had been determined that they were involved in what was going on. The president asked if anybody would be willing to join an audit committee to kind of look at what was going on. One of our board members was also a lawyer by day, and so the president asked him, and then I volunteered because I was the newest person on the board and because of my relevant work experience doing what I do. And so we had a first meeting, the 3 of us, the president, the lawyer, and myself. And let me just say, I don't know if I had not joined this group, I don't know. And I'm not saying this to be like, I'm awesome. I'm just saying, I don't know if things would have happened the way that they did. And here's why I know this, because when I arrived at this meeting that was going to be 1 hour, that ended up lasting, I think, 5, they had printouts of bank statements, paper, and they were manually adding up, trying to highlight things and be like, here's what we spent the money on. And I just looked at the president and I was like, dude, do you have online banking? Yes, we do. Okay, let's download some spreadsheets. We downloaded the CSV files. I did all this stuff. I put some filters, and I was very easily able to discern what expenses and charges to our account were actual pool related and the ones that were from Shopify or Wish.com. I wish I were joking. I'm not. Also, if you're gonna misappropriate funds from a volunteer organization, you shouldn't post on Facebook about all the shit you're buying and leave that public. Just saying. Anyway, through this process, the president and the lawyer, that's how I'm gonna refer to them now, the president and the lawyer, kind of gave each other a side eye and then looked at me and said, oh, hi, would you like to be our new treasurer? And against my better judgment, I said yes. Well, that decision, a shitstorm happened after that. And basically what happened was I got access to all of the financials and all of the old records that still existed from however long they were storing them for this pool. And what I found was that this was likely at least the third time that embezzlement had occurred at this pool, but it was the first time that legal action was taken. And I wasn't not going to let there be legal action. It had to happen because at the end of the day, my best estimate is that the former treasurer got away with at least $100,000 skimming over a 10-year period, at least. And the former dive instructor, director, at least $70,000. That's a lot of money for a pool that was basically falling apart in many places. During this time, though, and this will be for another video, people who did not know me, or people who knew me casually, were shit-talking me on social media, saying that I was the one who stole the money, or that my fellow board members, the ones that had not been removed, were the ones that stole the money. And they didn't know what I knew. And that's really frustrating. Also during this time, I was struggling with alcohol. My marriage wasn't in the best place because I didn't know, again, that I was autistic and had ADHD. And so you throw someone like me into a stressful situation where that activates my brain, right? Like in a crisis, I'm who you want around. I get shit done if there's some type of external stimuli going on. But if I'm left to my own devices, man, watch out. But the stress caused me to form inappropriate emotional bonds with other people on the board. I mean, nothing crazy. I mean, definitely inappropriate, but nothing like, there was no, anyway, inappropriate emotional relationship is what I'll say. And that wasn't the first time that happened to me. But what I know now, that I know that I'm autistic and have ADHD, is that my brain, I was looking for dopamine. That was a brain thing. And now that I know that, I have not had any issues with any of that since. It's amazing what knowledge will do. Unfortunately, not knowing that has ruined friendships. I don't know how many times I said the words out loud, but I was like, shit, I'm screwing up my marriage 1, 2, 3 times maybe? We actually were separated for almost a year in 2009, and it was the same shit. I didn't actually want to be with other people. I was getting brain chemicals out of it, unbeknownst to me. You know the kids that will openly defy you just to get a reaction, or they will keep doing, like, they'll be so hyper focused on something for like 6 months and then it's like done. It happens to adults too. And you might want to take note if you are a person with a uterus of a certain age in their 40s, because when perimenopause starts, even you've likely had these issues your whole life, they just haven't been as severe, or you've been able to manage them or mask them or whatever. But when you reach a certain age in your 40s, man, during that time, I launched a whole audit of this thing. And I was still working full-time at the library. And I uncovered a lot of stuff. And it wasn't just the treasurer and the dive instructor. Several other board members spent money in ways that wasn't illegal, because it wasn't like misappropriation of funds, as was so blatant with the treasurer and the dive director, but it definitely wasn't ethically appropriate. And some of those, I presented a file for each board member with what their expenses were and how they what maybe the issue was with it. This pool had no internal controls before. They had one person in charge of all of the money, and the people that were supposed to be doing the checks and balances mostly just rubber stamped it. Again, do you see the parallels here? So, someone like me stood up, said something. I produced these reports. I had the receipts, literally. I literally went online. I hate calling people. I called Amazon and got them to send me all kinds of receipts because I had all of the information. Because the people that were misappropriating the money were using funds like the debit card that belonged to the pool to affect these transactions. So, presented the report. It turned out that the pool had insurance for theft, which is great. And we were really lucky, I guess, that people had stolen from the pool in the past, because the previous president from the 80s, late 90s, I think, took it upon themselves to change the policy of the insurance to include theft by board members, not just employees. And that was huge, because in our case, our claim was that the board members took the money. So let's see, timeline-wise. So January of 2018 is when I became the treasurer. In April of 2018, I had completed my preliminary audit, and what I had determined in the first report, and I had all of the backup for it, was that or $40-something thousand in change had been misappropriated. And so it took a few weeks and a deposition with a forensic accountant from the insurance company that they hired, who read my report. And, well, we emailed it first, and then we had to have this meeting where we discussed it. And at the meeting were me, the president, the vice president at the time, who ended up resigning shortly after this because I mentioned the not illegal but morally questionable purchases. That was that one. The forensic accountant reviewed the papers and basically was like, you're going to get some money out of this, which is unusual. I don't know if you've dealt with insurance companies. They don't like to pay. They don't. So he looked at me and he's like, did you prepare this report? And I said, yeah, I prepared it. And he's like, what do you do? And I said, oh, I work part-time in a middle school library. And the look on his face, anyway, he got serious and he said, you should do this. And as a creature of praise and people pleasing and wanting to be the best of the best and being like, wow, you did this extraordinary thing, I was like, yeah, I should do this. And by August of 2018, I was enrolled in a forensic accounting graduate program. Anyway, so I did that. I got my master's degree, forensic studies with a concentration in forensic accounting. And I immediately got a job. You'll never guess where I got a job. I got a job with the state of Maryland. Another civil servant job. Except this time I was going to be working for the Office of Legislative Audits, right? So I was going to be like the auditor for the legislative branch, keeping checks and balances on the executive branch. I was very excited about this. Again, people talk about money and pay and whatever. My starting salary, without getting too much into numbers, was still about $25,000 less than what I was making when I worked for the feds in 2013. And by now I'd had an advanced degree. Anyway, just to keep, in case anybody's thinking about the monetary situation and all of this. I lasted 3 months. I don't know if anyone else did this, and I don't know why I did this, because I actually had a conversation with myself beforehand that I wasn't going to run out and get a job right after I finished my master's, because it was the middle of the pandy. Like, it was August of 2020 is when I graduated. I didn't walk. I didn't even buy a cap or gown. Anyway, I regret that. No. Anyway, so I got that job started in August, and by November I had quit. I did not realize that having a camera on me, being on Zoom meetings all day, I felt like I was being perceived all of the time. Don't enjoy that. So I quit, and I've been pretty much unemployed since. A year and a half later, I found out I have all these conditions: Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, degenerative disc disease, arthritis basically everywhere, which I already knew. I found out I was autistic, that I have ADHD, that I have a form of dysautonomia called orthostatic intolerance, which means basically I can't be still. It's hard for me to be still. I move around a lot. I talk with my hands. Got a little more insight into why I do that now. And of course, here we are, Trump 2.0. And as someone who has a debilitating chronic illness that's genetic in nature, I didn't ask for these conditions. I also had a severe case of mono when I was 20, which is the Epstein-Barr virus. And if you think about how they know about long COVID now, like COVID infections can hang around and reactivate, Epstein-Barr virus, same thing. So I think me having mono when I was 20 really kind of just exacerbated all of these other issues that I had, right? And I didn't find out about any of these other things that really would help me understand who I was as a human until I was 44 years old. And then the world, like, is what it is. And once I found out these things about my brain, I forgave myself, and I allowed myself to be myself. Which, for the people who have known me since I was born, hello parents, I doubt you're watching this anyway, but if you are, I don't know how to talk to them anymore. I don't. I want to. It is what I want them to know, and anybody who has known me for a long time and then now sees a change in me. It's not you. I'm being the way I should have been the whole time. My change in behavior over the years of people knowing me was shaped by how people responded to me. And unless I've explicitly told you I have an issue with you on a topic, I don't have an issue with you. I'm not deliberately ignoring you. I'm not deliberately not talking to you. I just know now I'm not into small talk. I don't want you to be offended if I'm outside in my yard and I see something beautiful that reminds me of you, if I text that picture of it to you, and I'm like, look at this gorgeous flower. And you write back and are like, yay, blah, 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 and have like a whole paragraph, and then I don't respond to you for 3 weeks. That's a real thing that happens in my life. That's not you, whoever the you are that replied back. That's me. What happened was, I'm a very stimuli-driven person. I probably saw that text, was like, oh, but I was in the middle of something else. Because the stimuli of the phone distracted me from what I was doing. So I took the phone and I'm like, oh, yay, okay. And then I would think about it, but then I would also remember, shit, I'm in the middle of this activity over here. I'll text them back later. Set the phone down, go about your day. Do you think I texted that person back? I wonder how many people I need to text back right now. Anyway, oh, Shit, so many people. Do you know how overwhelming that is? I'm just gonna like bury my phone for forever. Also, this is. Holy shit, I've been talking 30 minutes? Anyway, the last thing I want to say regarding this is I know it can feel very overwhelming with everything that's going on if you're someone who is checked in, even if you're not someone who's tuned in. At this point, I feel like most people have some sort of awareness as to what might be coming down the pike with regards to their lives. I know a lot of about a lot when it comes to this big picture issue, but I know that I'll burn out if I don't focus on what I really, really know about. And so my strategy to resist this is to share my knowledge on how to protect from fraud, like financial matters. I know about auditing. I know about white collar crime. And I know about trying to navigate life and parenting as a Gen X lady with two Gen Z kiddos, one of whom is about to graduate undergraduate with a bachelor's in meteorology and a minor in math, was accepted to graduate programs to study hurricanes, but there's no money. So that's a little concerning. And my youngest is in art school in their first year, so got some time there. But I don't know what he's 3. What is he going to do? Jobs at the Weather Service and NOAA, which he's qualified for. He actually worked at the Weather Service last summer up in college. Is it College State? State College, PA, up at Penn State, their weather station there. They're not hiring. And I don't know if he wants to, anyway. So, if you're frustrated, if you actually are concerned about what Elon might have on you, go to Jamie Raskin's website, get your FOIA request. At least you'll know. It's your data. If Doge has it, shouldn't you?
Thank you for listening. And if you want to check out me on YouTube, it's Shelli Sits Weirdly is my handle. That's where I'm on all social media. And that's all for now.